Anthropic just raised $65 billion at a valuation of $965 billion. Almost $1 trillion for a company that was founded in 2021. That is not a rounding error. That is the largest private AI funding round ever recorded, and it means Anthropic is now one IPO away from joining the most valuable companies in human history. Let's put this in context. Anthropic was founded in 2021 by former OpenAI researchers who believed the frontier AI race needed a safety-first counterweight. 5 years later, investors have priced that bet at nearly $1 trillion. The Series H, reportedly the company's final private round before an IPO, closed at a $965 billion post-money valuation. That makes Anthropic more valuable than ExxonMobil, Goldman Sachs, and most sovereign wealth funds. The Claude model family has been gaining serious enterprise traction, and Anthropic's positioning as a responsible alternative to OpenAI has clearly resonated with institutional capital. But now the IPO clock is ticking. When Anthropic goes public, it will be one of the most watched market debuts in tech history, not just because of the valuation, but because it will be a public referendum on whether safety-focused AI is a viable long-term business model or just a compelling story. The market's about to give us its answer. Anthropic's near $1 trillion valuation is a bet on AI's commercial future. But what does that future actually look like? Well, Boston Children's Hospital just showed us one answer, and it's already saving lives. Boston Children's Hospital handles cases that other hospitals can't solve. Children with conditions so rare that most clinicians will never encounter them in a career. Diagnosing rare diseases is notoriously difficult. Patients often wait years, sometimes decades, cycling through misdiagnoses before anyone connects the dots. OpenAI's technology is now changing that. Boston Children's has deployed an AI system built on OpenAI's models that has already contributed to diagnoses in more than 40 rare disease cases. That number sounds modest until you understand what it represents. 40 families who finally got an answer. The system also reduces operational burden on clinical staff, which in a hospital environment translates directly to more time with patients. This isn't a research paper. This isn't a controlled trial. This is a live deployment inside one of the world's premier hospitals producing real outcomes. When people debate whether AI has genuine utility in healthcare, this is the kind of evidence that starts to end that debate. Real-world deployment is one side of the equation, but as AI systems move deeper into hospitals and enterprises, the question of how they're governed becomes impossible to ignore. Well, OpenAI has also addressed that directly this week. OpenAI published its Frontier Governance Framework this week, a detailed public document laying out how the company's safety, security, and risk practices are designed to align with emerging regulations, specifically the EU AI Act and California's forthcoming AI legislation. This is worth paying attention to regardless of where you sit on the OpenAI trust spectrum. Governance frameworks are how industries self-define before regulators do it for them. By publishing specific, detailed commitments, OpenAI is doing two things simultaneously: signaling to regulators that it wants a seat at the table, and setting a public benchmark that it can now be held to. Competitors will face pressure to match or exceed it. Regulators in Brussels and Sacramento now have a concrete reference point, and enterprise customers, the one writing the big contracts, now have a document they can cite in procurement decisions. The cynics' read is that this is regulatory theater. The optimists' read is that it's the beginning of real institutional accountability. The honest read is probably both, and that's still progress. Governance that starts as positioning can become binding. That's how standards get made. Here's what I want to know from you. As AI moves into hospitals, financial markets, and critical infrastructure, do you think the voluntary governance frameworks like OpenAI's are a meaningful step forward? Or is this just regulatory positioning until real laws arrive? Drop your take in the comments. If you enjoyed today's content, hit the like button. And if you want sharp, no hype AI coverage on a regular basis, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.